This week, Down with Dedee is excited to be sponsored by the Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation. You can find out more about this amazing organization by visiting hazeldenbettyford.org. Today on Down with Dedee, my mom will be having a conversation with William Moyer.
William, oh, thank you so much for coming on my show. I have to say, I love watching your face let the music take over your body, your soul. I got to say, it's one of the most special things about my show that I discovered that people really seem to like starting podcasts with just listening to some music, kind of dropping from our heads into our hearts.
And Dedee, you know what? You played a song that is on my playlist, my Apple playlist. And so if you'd been playing something from the 2000s or later, I'm not sure I would have been able to get as centered. But I love what you played because it brought me right to where I needed to be and reminded me of all the good things that have been part of my life.
Thank you. And since we are sober brother and sister, William, we met in a crazy way, which is what I call recovery and sobriety. You so sweetly brought my name up to the Betty Ford Foundation as a keynote speaker. You were such an amazing man for doing that. And I have to thank you with all of my heart, my mind, my soul for giving me such a beautiful opportunity. It literally changed the trajectory of my life, not to mention my recovery, because it just elevated and it showed me the possibilities are truly endless when one decides to choose life over slowly dying, which is what happens when we're active in our disease, right?
Yes, and you know, Dedee, you're welcome, but you were the one that really made the relationship happen and blossom because you came and spoke at the Betty Ford Center's 40th anniversary celebration in 2022, and you rocked it. And the story that you told was different than most stories that you would hear from the stage when somebody talks about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now, because you know you read that letter to your father, and that resonated with the audience that night in a way that it had never before experienced somebody at the stage. Over the decades, we've had lots of celebrities and well-known people and recovering people tell their stories, but not with the perspective that you had. It was really powerful, and people are still talking about it.
Oh my God, thank you so much. You know, it's so important. I've always been a people pleaser, and I've always wanted to save all the people and all the animals. Let me reverse that. All the animals and all the people in the world. Because that little girl, animals and I always resonated. But you know, it's funny because when I didn't even realize I had a disease. So one of the things that is not uncommon with people who want to help other people is we completely forget about ourselves. My generation, self-care didn't exist, you know, that you know, and now we're so fortunate to be in a generation that says, no, you got to take care of home base first. I'm no good to you or anybody else, my children in the world, unless I take care of home base. So getting my butt sober was a huge one, but only when I was ready. You know,
Yes.
one of the things that I think is hard for people to understand is that recovery, the journey starts with the person deciding one day, for whatever the reason, I'm done. I want to change. You know, some never get that opportunity because they leave their bodies too soon. They go to the light. I hope they come back around. I do hope they come back around and get another shot at it. So every day that I'm in this body, I say, wow, my recovery showed me, what am I going to do with this soul in this body today to help one person? And let me ask you a question. What other group of people on a daily basis dedicate their life to it is selfish. It does keep my own butt sober. Okay, I'm not going to lie. Helping others helps keep me sober. I know it does with you too, right?
Absolutely. You know, I've worked for Hazelden Betty Ford. We merged in 2014. I've worked there since 1996, and I'm an alum from 1989. So that was, as of this interview, 34 years ago. It took me a number of years to finally get some traction in recovery. But very quickly, I discovered that nothing's more important than my own recovery. If I don't take care of my own mind, body, and spirit, I'm not going to be good to anybody else. And in the role that I have at Hazelden Betty Ford as the public advocate for the organization, although you're the one I think that coined the phrase "recover out loud," I had never heard that phrase until I heard you say it, and I had been talking out loud for many, many years, but I never heard it that way.
You've been on all the major talk shows. You've written books, bestsellers. We're going to talk about at the end. You are truly the epitome of recovering out loud, which I
But
love.
I never heard that before, the way you expressed it. And it's true. And what I discovered from that, Dedee, was that when I recover out loud, when I tell my story, whether it's at a Rotary Club or on Oprah or on your podcast, then there's going to be somebody else who hears what we have to share and then comes to me and asks for help. And I have discovered over the decades that when I help somebody else, I do help myself.
Yeah. And you know something? People say, well, isn't that selfish? I'm like, well, hold on. If what doesn't make any sense to me? Okay, let's call it selfish. I'm selfish because I want to stay alive so that I can help other people. All right, I'm the biggest selfish then you're going to meet.
Yes. Yes.
Say something. One thing I love about people like you. Oh my God, William, this month on the 29th, I will be 5 years sober. Oh, and you know, now how many years do you have, babe? I know you're a veteran.
Well, I came into recovery in 1989, but it took me until 1994 to sort of get traction in recovery. So I count my recovery from 1989. I count my sobriety from 1994. And I did have an experience with pain meds about 10 years ago that further enhanced my recovery journey. But I've been walking this walk for a long time.
Hey, you know something, William? Hold on. I'm glad we brought that up. The whole painkiller thing, the whole like prescribed medicine thing. Listen, when I had plastic surgery, yes, I'm going to have both my plastic surgeons on because yes, I am. Hey, listen, this God or your God or Mother Earth didn't slap me with the lucky stick. So I don't want to say, oh my God, she's so lucky. No, honey, I've had work. Here's the thing. And also sobriety. Let me tell you, woo, do you see the pictures of people who are active in their disease and then they take these pictures 30 days sober, 60 days sober, 2 years sober? I'm always liking all of those on all the sober Instagram sites. I'm like, and they're like, Dedee Pfeiffer just liked my picture. I'm like, you bet. I'm like, fire. Hot. You know, but you know, the thing is that, oh my God, I do this all the time. I think I just had a brain fart. I distracted.
Well, you were talking about pain pills, pain meds.
Is that really the addict's fault? The person with the addiction, they go in good faith. The doctor says, oh, you had surgery or whatever, you backache, and they give you medicine. Now we know intellectually that they're addictive, but you would hope in good faith that a doctor would prescribe these meds carefully to someone with an addiction. Here's the problem. I went to UCLA. Listen, my area of concentration is mental health. Nowhere in there did we get any kind of education on addiction. I've been educating my own doctors about my addiction. They try to give me pills and I said, I'm not sure about that, you know, or give me the painkillers for my surgery afterwards, but give me like a few just to get me through the first days and I'll go right to Tylenol. Now, I'm not a big pill popper and I don't like the feeling of it. It's icky. My whole thing is I just really want to check out and painkillers. But for others, they could eat, it could trigger that, ooh, I like this feeling, right? And therein lies a rabbit hole. So would you say it's really the addict's fault if they go in good faith and like in your case, and then all of a sudden you find yourself liking the feeling of the medicine and asking for more?
It's not our fault, but it is our responsibility to make sure, A, that the doctors do know, because to your point, a lot of docs don't understand the nature of addiction and the fact that pain pills can be the Trojan horse, as I call them. But it is our responsibility to let those doctors know, and it is our responsibility to make sure that somebody else in our household or some other recovering person in our community knows that we're using them, so that if we do go down that slippery slope, they can rein us back in. And candidly, Dedee, I was not vigilant about that. My doctors knew I was a person in long-term recovery at that point. I mean, how could they not? I had been public advocate for decades. And ironically, 2 of those prescribing doctors were themselves recovering docs. They assumed that because I had decades of recovery that I would be okay. And as we know, this illness is cunning, baffling, powerful, and patient. It waits, and it waited for me, and it almost got me.
Oh my God, William, I did not know that full story. You're kidding me. So your doctors knew, your doctors are in recovery. They assume because you're on Larry King, Oprah, and every single talk show, including Down with Dedee, me. At that time they didn't know, or about to know, but that they still assumed that your addict was completely dormant and asleep and in a coma, which is interesting because, you know, they would know more than anybody how cunning this disease is. And it's a disease. It's a disease. I cannot say that enough. Wow. I am so sorry that happened to you. I hope somebody listens to this and goes, wow, that is a profound aspect of recovery that no one really looks at and hones in on. Because, when I had my plastic surgeries, my sober coach, I called her. I said, okay, they want to give me this
Smart.
stuff, Vicodin. I don't like it. All it does is make me constipated. I never get high. I hate the shit, but I also don't like pain. And she's like, honey, I got your back, And even my boys were like, Mom, I'm like, no, honey, it's just because, listen, they just cut my whole face open and took my muscles and stitched them behind my head. It's going to be a little, but I look it, huh?
Uh-huh. You too. Good
Well,
job.
Your lift, baby. But I said, it's probably going to be painful. But at the end of the day, you're right. I didn't realize that's what I had done, which was get this buffer, this extra support so that they could help me watch me. Right.
Yes.
I think that word is so important. We say it quickly and it doesn't get honed in on cunning. It's an old word, cunning.
Yes.
Which goes with clever. And it's like that. It's that part of us, the addict, that is sitting there just waiting for that crack, waiting for the moment to come in and start driving our car, which is what, didn't I say that, I think, in my speech, how I might put my WD-50, my addict, in the trunk. I'm driving the car because that bitch don't know how to drive and she was going to kill us. But she is sitting there waiting to jump out of the trunk into the back seat to tap me on the shoulder to say, hey.
Yes. Well, and here's the thing about mine is that, my drugs of no choice, as I call them, were crack cocaine and alcohol. And they landed me in a crack house in Harlem, New York in 1989, and then a crack house in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1991, and then a crack house in Atlanta, Georgia in 1994, when I finally came out of the crack house for what I hope is the last time. But cocaine and alcohol were my drugs of no choice. I had decades of recovery. And then all of a sudden I'm prescribed opiate pain meds for a root canal that I had, and then a neuralgia that I developed in my jaw. And I'd only used opiates one time in my entire using career. And all of a sudden when I took that pill, it was like, oh, I don't have to try so hard anymore.
Yeah.
I like it. It takes care of the pain, and it just makes me feel a little more at ease. And there I was off to the races. And, and thank goodness I had the recovery that I had banked, because I always talk about my IRA. We talk about those being individual retirement accounts. Well, my IRA is my individual recovery account. And I'm always putting stuff into that account, like helping other people, so that when the day comes and I've got to withdraw something from that IRA, I can withdraw it, and hopefully, as it did in this case about 10 years ago, pull me back from the abyss.
Wow. William, I love that. I'm going to steal that, the IRA.
Please do.
Oh, I stole Recovering Out Loud. I did not make that up. I only steal from the best.
Listen, there's no original thought in the recovery community. We all think we're brilliant, but we got it from somebody else who was brilliant.
Well, first of all, wow. You know what I love about you is that for those of you who are watching this, because most of this might be on radio, William is look at this beautiful face, this beautiful man. And, it's interesting when you tell the stories of how low you were and what you were doing back then. People would look at you right now and go, but it is true. It can happen to anybody. Relapse is also true. It's interesting right now, as we are recording this, and I'm not sure when this is going to air, but there's a writer's strike going on, and there's an actor strike going on. Everybody right now is striking. The world is a very noisy, scary place. And I worry about those of us in recovery, because the addicts dormant in us are just waiting for any opportunity to come out. And so it's almost like now more than ever, we've got to stick together. We've got to help each other through these tough times. We're going to get through them. It's just going to be bumpy. But when you said the pill took away all of the work, it was just easy. You felt good without working.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can resonate with that. That's why most people who's a normie, they say at the end of the day, they have a drink, right? And they just take that big breath. There's some people now are just a big toke pot, whatever. Toke pot.
Right. Yeah.
They smoke pot and then they can chillax. We don't have those opportunities, but what we've had to do is work a little harder to find those moments of peace. Some do it with prayer, some do it with meditation, some do it with exercise. There's various ways we do it to find that peace. But let me tell you, this is where, who was it I was talking to said, listen, recovery is not for pussies. I'm sorry, it's work. So people, we'd like to think that people have a view, people in recovery or addicts, as weak. No, we're really tough. It takes some huevos to stay sober every day, because like you said, take a pill and it's all done.
A little easier, and because recovery is and that's why I've always said, Dedee, that recovery is not a destination, it's a journey. And if it's a journey, you got to work at it. It just doesn't happen. To your point, however you work it, you got to work it, whether it's in 12-step recovery, whether it's in yoga, whether it's meditation, or some other form of getting well. We have to work at it. And the other thing we have to do is we have to see every day that we have in recovery is a gift. And we need to treat it as a gift. If somebody gives you a present for your birthday or at Christmas, you accept that present, that gift, you cherish it, you keep it, hopefully, and you admire it and you appreciate it. If ditto with recovery, every day is a gift. We've got to cherish it. We've got to nurture it. We've got to appreciate it. Never forget that gift is the direct result of what used to be the hell in our lives, which is our, trying to live under the influence of substances. And recovery is a gift because we don't have to live under the influence anymore.
DJ.
Yes, Dedee.
I love it when you do that. Let's talk William Moyer. How fun was that? I don't even call it an interview. It was a conversation.
That was great. Absolutely fab.
Yeah, he has the most beautiful sobriety. His energy and his support for everybody and anybody who's interested in experiencing a rebirth of recovery. He is, I would say, a beautiful voice and face to the foundation, Hazelden Betty Ford, and what he does for that foundation is phenomenal. What I love about him is that he's so understated. He has this journey and he's written books. We come from a family of big last names. And there you go. Addiction doesn't care who you are, right? Addiction doesn't care what family you were born into.
Mm-mm.
And here's this foundation saying, we care who you are, whatever your name is. And it's a safe spot, Hazelden Betty Ford, to land if you and when you are ready to recover. And the sobriety, and I think William in our podcast really talks beautifully about what sobriety looks like. I mean, just listening to him talk, you kind of go, you want some of that, right? And if you're active in your disease, yeah, you can't. You're active in your disease, you're not who you really are. You're your disease. During these holidays, more than ever, Hazelden Betty Ford is there. I love the fact that when you hear that name, you just go right to a place that can help you. You'll be safe there. And also it was because of him is why I was invited to be their keynote speaker at their 40th anniversary this last year, the year before actually. What I love, I didn't even get sober there. And they're like, we don't care about that. We love the way you're recovering. Come be our keynote speaker. And so humbling and grateful that was. And that was because of William. Yeah.
It's true. And you can find out more at hazeldenbettyford.org.
And watch our podcast too. You can see all these beautiful people.
That's true. That's true. Go back and listen to some of the older episodes. And you can even catch who was that again? Was it Susan?
We also had Susan Ford on, but we had her early on because she was, when she said yes, I used her to get my sister Michelle Pfeiffer, yes, to do it, because when she found out I got Susan Ford, and then I asked her, she said, I was waiting for you to ask me. I said, I want to make sure I had Susan, because I knew if I had Susan, she'd be like, well, wait a minute, I want to be on if Susan's going to be on. Oh, Susan is just, we've become such great friends. We're always sending each other like little things. And again, she's, well, her mom, it's Betty Ford. I mean, do we say any more? And Susan herself is still very much involved with the Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation. Be well out there during the holidays. Take care of each other. We're all connected and we are all in this together.
Thanks, everybody.
Namaste. And it's so true. And that saying that I really love is that recovery looks like this. You give up everything for one thing when you're in your disease. And in recovery, right, you give up one thing and you get everything. And people go, oh, that just sounds so huge. I can't tell you how many things have come my way that have just been amazing, that I'm like, even DJ, my producer, who's not even sober, is like, girl, you got some good energy. You got a lot. My publicist who came to me with Betty Ford, she's a normie, and she sat in that room with how many people were in that room that I spoke in front of, that I almost peed my pants.
1,000, 1,200, whatever.
She said, she was so taken back, especially the Q&A with you the next day. She was so moved by this, thousands of people that in recovery, there for the same common reason, to help each other. It's not just help each other get sober, it's beyond that. It's the quality of life, giving somebody what I call a rebirth.
Yeah.
I'm 59 and I have a rebirth. How exciting is that? And that goes with what you were saying, which is every day that we have is a day we're not going to get back.
Yeah.
Every hour that goes by is an hour we don't get back. So what are you going to do with this hour, this minute right now? And when I really hone it in, that's, if I ever think about going out, I'll lose so much. When I say go out, meaning, relapse. And that's a lot of people's story. And I do not blame them, because to say that I'm safe is ridiculous. Relapse is always, I know people with 35 years who said at a meeting, I've relapsed, and I go, oh my God, how does that happen? Tell me the pre-lapse signs. I need to know what those suckers look like, please. You know what I mean? That's a gift too, is teaching people what the pre-lapse signs look like, because none of us are safe from this disease, right? Ultimately.
That's right. Because as I said earlier, it is cunning. It's a cunning illness. It's a baffling illness. It causes good people like us to do bad things, rational people to do irrational things. It's cunning, baffling. It's powerful. It consumes our mind, bodies, and our spirits. And to your point, exactly, it's also patient. A lot of people think when you go to treatment, that you go to treatment and then you're cured of addiction. But addiction we know this at Hazelden Betty Ford, addiction is a chronic illness like diabetes or hypertension or asthma or cancer. There's a solution to a lot of those illnesses, but so far, at least, there's no cure. Ditto addiction. So when you and I get into remission from our illness, that's a good thing, but it's still around. And it's, as we said, cunning, baffling, powerful, and patient. It waits. And if we don't continue to take care of ourselves as people in recovery, it can come back, which is another point you raised, which is, relapse does occur with this illness quite a bit. I don't even like the term relapse. I use the term a recurrence of use, because the term relapse has a lot of stigma around it, like failure or you're not working your program or whatever. So my point is that if you have a recurrence of use, you don't start over, you start again. And, for those of us who've experienced that, you get up and you just keep moving in the right direction. You don't have to go back to the beginning. You don't have to sit in quietness, and you get up and you just keep marching.
I love what you said, because I've met a lot of people who say, oh, I had 5 years and then I relapsed. I went out and then I get back. So they have to start their sober days over. And I asked them, and I was the one in rehab that was always raising my hand going, wait a minute, you're asking me of myself. And you just said all or nothing thinking is not good for addicts or anybody. Black and white thinking is not healthy. But yet we're going from self-loathing to self-love. That's black and white thinking. How about if we start with baby steps, discovering little baby likes about yourself every day, to slowly, gradually get to self-love? Because otherwise you're asking me to take a huge leap, and that's almost impossible. So I was always the one questioning the therapist in rehab, and they were like,
sure.
I see they always asking questions. But because I think that it's super important. It's just super important that, all of these little levels of addiction and recovery are so individual. Why people do what they do, we're still discovering all of that, right? And it is a very cunning thing. Here's what I don't understand. If you have 5 years sober and you have that, and you go out or hiccup or whatever you want to call it, and I agree with you with the social stigma, and then you jump back on the train, right? You get back on the path is what I call it. How come that 5 years is not counted? Why would you not count 5 years of doing it every day? You can't get that out like you didn't do that.
Right. Dedee, what happens when a woman has breast cancer? She's diagnosed with breast cancer, and she either has a mastectomy or she has radiation and chemo, and the breast cancer goes into remission. And then she's got let's say she has 6 years of being cancer free. And then all of a sudden it comes back. We don't say to her, oh, well, that was a waste of time. That didn't work out. No, every day that you recover from breast cancer is like every day you recover from addiction. It's a gift. It's a gift. It's an opportunity to live your life to the fullest, however that is. If you have a recurrence of your use, it doesn't mean those gifts that you had before have gone away. No, they're still there. They still count.
I agree. And, this is why, some places are like, why is that woman who's always like challenging and pushing up against what we know to be the rules? And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not sure if I'm into rules. I think that things need to be real, and it is real. Every single day of 5 years. Hey, listen, 1 week of recovery is a shit long time. If anybody's ever tried to quit something, like, here's a good example. Put your phone down.
Yeah, right.
Down and don't look at it or touch it for 30 days. And all that feeling that comes up, all of that's how we feel a lot of the times. And even sometimes 5 years later or 30 years later, sometimes I call it itchy. You get itchy. You get itchy for the phone, right?
Yes.
And you have to go, okay, wow. Ooh, why are you itching? What's going on? Is your addict inside going, hi, remember me? Hold on there, Chica. Not today, Felicia. And then you have to, like you said, call somebody or whatever. It's such a life is fragile. Recovery is fragile. And by the way, about cancer, I'm about to have my friend on, I think today or tomorrow, Meg. She's beat cancer like 3-4 times. She's only in her 30s or 40s.
Wow.
Right? Tell her that the first time she beat it didn't count. The second time she beat it didn't count. The third, you know what I mean? Hell, she'll tell you, she fought for her life, which is what we're doing in recovery. Are we not fighting for our lives?
Well, and Dedee, here's another thing to consider. And again, I don't want to take issue with it because, listen, I know lots of people who've got 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of continuous recovery. Power to them. But they're also smoking cigarettes, or they're also eating too much, or they're drinking too much coffee, or they're doing whatever they're doing. I mean, recovery is, the beauty of recovery is that we can find our own accommodation with it. What works for Dedee works differently for William, and what works for William works differently for Mary. And the point is who am I to judge somebody else's recovery journey? Because it's not my journey, it's their journey. I've seen many, many people in the 12-step recovery pathway who smoke themselves to death. They haven't had a drink for 50 years, but they're maintaining their recoveries by taking nicotine. So I'm not going to try to judge them. All I'm just trying to say is that recovery is to each her own. Recovery is to each his own. It's like beauty; it's in the eyes of the beholder. And yes, we all want to be continuously recovered, but we have a chronic disease. We're also human beings, which means what? It's imperfect. So we got to embrace with the widest arms that we can the fact that recovery is unique to you, like it's unique to me, like it's unique to the rest of us.
William, I love you. You're so amazing. Your words are powerful. By the way, you mentioned human being. You know where we're going with this. William.
Yeah.
William, do you believe in the paranormal? Yes or no? And why? Go, baby.
Yeah, so mine is pretty simple, and I wish I had a profound story. I do believe in it because I believe in the power of options, and the power of perception, and in the power of encounter. And I've never seen a ghost. I've never seen somebody hovering above a tombstone in a graveyard. But I will tell you, Dedee, that I'm in my house today in St. Paul, Minnesota. I've been in this house since 1995, when I came back after my last recurrence of use in Atlanta and moved back to Minnesota. And I was here in this house that was built in 1882. And when I moved into this house in 1995, it was empty. And I walked into the front foyer, the hallway, with this big sweeping staircase. The first time I'd ever been in this house, and I looked around, I said, what have I done in buying this place? It's enormous. It's going to take a lot of work, et cetera, et cetera. As I stood there, I began to turn towards the dining room and the living room to look at that. And as I did that, I sensed a presence over here on my right shoulder. And as I turned, and I know it was there. I know it was there. I can't tell you what it looked like, but I know it was there. It was a presence, because as I turned back, it disappeared around the corner. I have no doubt in my mind that I had the experience that we're talking about today, that what happened to me that day was as profound as anybody else's paranormal experience. Mine was not dramatic. It wasn't scary. I don't think they're mostly scary. And it did not affect the rest of my life, but it was there. So yes, I do believe in it. And you do too, right?
Oh, that's an understatement. I've had multiple experiences with things like that. Mine are usually critters on the floor, on the ground. Like just
Oh, really?
and it's
Huh.
did my cat just go by? And all my cat would be in the other room sleeping. And then
Yeah.
would happen again and again happen. And then my son, it just confirmed. My son said something, ran in front of him. He's 17. He almost tripped over it, and he realized he thought it was a cat, and there was nothing there. And I was like, oh yeah, this was in New Mexico. Duh.
Uh-huh.
And I called the owners and I said, is there something, a little extra energy? And they said, we didn't want to scare you, but yes. I said, okay. So I just said out loud, okay, buddy, here's what's going on. We're roomies. All right. Do not be tripping my son, because I can't have him in the ER again. He's already broke his ankle, the whole thing. And then, so we lived with this kind of energy that was playful. It didn't happen a lot, but it happened enough where I kind of knew something was there. And then my best friend, Kenny, has come to me twice in very powerful ways. But I think the bottom line is, William, it's interesting because people talk about their experiences and there's social stigma around it. I think it's getting less and less, just like addiction.
Yeah.
One of the things I know there is a parallel. A lot of times for many years, people talked about their experiences and people made fun of them. Like, oh, Johnny on the farm said that something flew in his crop circle and and it's like, Johnny doesn't want to be considered crazy. Johnny's a begrudging, like, listen, I'm just telling you what happened. And then they're ridiculed and people don't want to come out and tell people their experiences.
Yeah.
People don't want to recover out loud. People don't want to say, hey, I got 35 years in recovery, because there's still a little social stigma around it, right?
Yeah, and nobody's ever asked me. I've done thousands of interviews over the decades, but no one's ever asked me what you asked me today. And I find it very intriguing, and it causes me actually to think about and to realize I had another experience, and I don't know if it would qualify under how you define paranormal, but when I was in detox in Atlanta in 1994, I'd had 3 years of continuous abstinence, as I called it then. I was not recovering in the way I am today, but I had abstinence for the 3 years between 1991 and 1994. I was working as a journalist for CNN. I had a sober wife and 2 baby boys, and then I had a recurrence of use. I ended up in a crack house in Atlanta, and it was a devastating experience, but I made it out of there. And I was in detox on suicide watch for 8 days, lying on the floor of this detox, no shoelaces, no belt, rubber mat on the floor. I've been crushed by my illness. I had been completely crushed. I'm alive, but I've been crushed. And I had a whisper in my ear. And I know I had that whisper because it caused me to do what I did next. The whisper was St. Paul. And I didn't know the story of St. Paul, the saint, as it's told in the Bible, but I knew that whomever was whispering that to me, St. Paul, was telling me that I needed to move back to St. Paul, Minnesota, where I'd spent some years in the late 80s, early 90s at Hazelden, where I was getting treatment. There's a remarkable recovery community in the Twin Cities. And when I heard that whisper in my ear, I didn't imagine it. I know I heard it. I was the only one in the room, so nobody else whispered it, but I heard it. So maybe that qualifies as a paranormal experience, and one that actually ended up having a profound impact on me, because I did go to treatment in Atlanta for 100 days, quit my job at CNN, and I moved back to Minnesota, where incidentally, I ran into this other paranormal experience of something present in the house when I moved in here. So,
oh, William, I love that story. Somebody is watching over you, my friend.
yes.
I believe that. And that is hand in hand with everything I'm talking about.
Really?
Well, absolutely. I mean, now a therapist or some other people could diagnose you and say that he just was detoxing and all that. But I don't think that explaining these things away is, sometimes it's okay to do that, especially if you're afraid. I think explaining things away is is awful, because what happened to you is beautiful.
You're right.
Beautiful what happened to you. Why is that crazy? It's not crazy, it's beautiful. And call it for what you is. What I think happens is people don't understand what we don't understand, we're scared of, and we push away. And we're taught to be scared. We're taught. Movies tell us to be scared. Parents say, dark corners are scary, boogeyman's out there are scary. Government says alien, UFO, UAPs are out there. We have now a lot of money we're throwing at just investigating them because they're in national security. No, they're not. If they wanted to hurt us, they would have by now. Oh, stop that. It's always the fear, right? Like instill fear to control everybody. And I don't know about you, but I'm kind of tired of that, because I've lived my entire life through fear. And when you say I'm not going there, I'm going to be curious, not resistant. I'm going to, I'm not going to live with fear, so that I can have clarity and just kind of look at things like, well, that's a beautiful experience. I never had that happen to me, but that's beautiful. Why isn't that the response, other than, well, William was detoxing and I'm sure his mind was playing tricks on him. We're just going to explain it away as if it's not an important, profound thing that's beautiful. Because I promise you, more people have had these experiences that are not saying it out loud because they don't want to be considered crazy. Just like on Big Sky, I had people come to me and whisper, I have 40,000 years, whatever, sober. And I'm like, why are you whispering?
Yeah.
I had 2 years. And they're like,
Yeah.
And so, right? Why are we asking these things? Because we're afraid of being judged. We're afraid, of being part of the crazy party, whatever. But I will tell you, statistics say more than 80% of all beings around the world believe in something else.
Yes.
Something else. It's all energy. We're all connected. It's, and I think that's how we're going to cure the world, is to make sure that we remember that we're all connected. Mother Earth is a beautiful blue planet. Animals, people alike, we're all part of it, and anything outside that, the neighbors upstairs, which is what I like. The neighbors upstairs are watching us because, of course, they're down here snooping around because we got nukes. They're down. If your neighbor downstairs was blowing up firecrackers in the apartment, wouldn't you go down there and go, yo, dude, knock it off with the firecrackers? You're going to blow up the building. That's what I think the UFOs are doing. They're coming down here going, hey, can you knock it off with the nukes? You're messing up our environment up here. Our universe is up here. These parallel universes, whatever's going on up there. I don't really know, but let's give it, it's credit. Let's just say there is. We're messing up, space and everything else that's out there that we're not, we don't even know about yet.
So let me ask you this, since you do know about this topic way more than I do. I never even considered it till now. But can a paranormal experience be just an audible experience, or does it have to be a visual experience?
Well, both. I went to Columbia. I don't know. You should really look. This guy, he's not giving me a kickback. I wish he would. He doesn't know me. He doesn't even know I went to his retreat. Dr. Joe Dispenza, and others alike. They basically, you do the 7-day retreat, but you can watch Rewired. And basically it's about our frequency. And if you can bring your frequency to a certain level, because our bodies are only less than 1% matter, and the rest of our bodies are atoms, which is energy. 99.9% our bodies are atoms, which is energy. So we're more energy than we are mass, which is so interesting to think about that.
Yeah.
So understand that, and you can pull those two apart. Right. And with the energy part of your being, you can go to the mystical, and you can literally, it's unlimited what you can do and experience. It's also incredibly calming. And it's this new generation of people that are just really getting in touch with our frequencies, and it opens you up to all of that. I mean, it's all of that. It's whatever it is for you, and it's different. My friend Catherine went, I won't say her last name, but she and I went, and her experience was different than mine, but both mystical and magical and life transforming.
Yeah. Wow.
I came home and my family thought I was nuts. And I said, they're like, we don't know what happened, but she's crazy as a loon, but she's always been crazy as a loon. But my God, the light that I carry with me.
Yeah.
And the curiosity in my brain, and the love in my heart, and knowing about my energies and the frequencies, and that we're all connected. And I'm not alone with this, is how we're going to, I think, cure the world. I think we're going to fix things by just coming together.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to cure anything by being apart. And I mean, because I really don't think it's about politics. That's why I don't even bring that up on my show. That it's beyond that, and it's about mankind, animals, Mother Earth, and our universe. We have to get back to the simple truth of our energies, really, and our authentic truth, which sobriety absolutely brings us to.
That's why, and that's a beautiful thing you said there, because I agree that there's no room really to talk politics on podcasts like this, and so we won't. But my point is that all of us are recovering from something. I mean, you hear that phrase and it's sort of overwrought and kind of applied to everything. But the reality is that I don't know anybody who hasn't had trauma or challenge or tragedy or addiction or death in their lives. And every one of those experiences requires us to recover from them. Otherwise, they defeat us. And so why can't we use sort of the platform or the worldly cover of recovery to bring us all together and realize that we're here for such a short time on this earth? Even if we live to be 80, 90 years old, it's a blink of an eye. So why do we want to spend so much time dividing and conquering when there's so much better of an opportunity to come together and celebrate recovery, however you define recovery?
It is so true. I love your words. Oh my God, I love your words. Okay, now you had asked me earlier about this big bad boy behind me. It's my spirit.
Yeah, what is it exactly? Tell me more.
My spirit man. I've mentioned him many times in my podcast, so I won't bore my listeners with him, but he is my spirit animal. Would I be reincarnated as my spirit animal? I'm gonna have to say, yeah, he's pretty badass. He's sexy. They're lions, they lay around and they have all these women and all these their wives go do all the work. I'm a single mother of 2 boys. Okay, divorced 3 times. I think in my next life as an animal, I need a break. So I want to be gorgeous and lay there all do all the work, right? I might get up off my ass and go hunt, maybe grab and get dinner. But otherwise, I just want to lay there and look majestic and gorgeous and let everyone else do the work for them in my next life. Okay? What about you, William? What animal would you like to be reincarnated as? Well, God, that was hard to say. Reincarnated as, and why?
Well, no one's ever asked me that question either. And I've been doing this for decades. So kudos to you, Dedee. You should be a journalist when you're not an actress and when you're not a recovering woman. You should be a journalist. I'm serious. So I mean, interestingly enough, I wouldn't come back as a lion, but I would come back as a feline. I love cats. I've always had cats in my life. I talk to my cat and it talks to me. I mean, really. When I'm out in my gardens in my yard working in the summertime here in Minnesota, it's always under the bushes and stalking me and playing with me. In the morning, it's always walks on my chest when I'm getting up in the morning. It sits with me on the front porch in the evening. So I would probably come back as a cat, and I would come back as a cat because I would like to be easily satisfied. And it's real easy to satisfy a cat. You feed it and you stroke it. And when you stroke it, it gives back this really nice vibe. It purrs, and it purrs whether it's a little teeny tiny munchkin cat, which I have here in my house, or a big lion like you are going to come back as. I mean, they always purr. And there's something very soothing about purring. And something very sort of profound about how easy it is to satisfy a creature by just stroking it. So I would come back as a cat.
You know, so I love it. See, I have 2 cats. I've had cats my whole life. I have dogs. I've had iguanas. I've had, I save everything. But you know something, you're absolutely right. I never thought about that. But there is this, whenever I can get my cat to purr, it goes through your body. Don't you feel it? That goes through your body because people go, oh, he's purring. You stop in your tracks when you touch a cat that's purring. That's vibration. That's energy. That's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
It's incredibly soothing. You could be thinking about, oh my God, how am I going to pay my rent? And a cat brushes up and purrs, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey there. It completely distracts you from that thought. You know what else I love about cats? They're like this. When I want attention, come to you, Charlie. Okay? Do not come to me. I will diss you hard. That's how mine are, right? Like I'll go, I'm like, hi, baby, how are you? And then they act like I have acid on my fingers. Don't Pfeiffer, chica. And I'm like, excuse me, I'm the one who's about to give you a treat. Okay. And they're like, yeah, not now, honey. Okay. Not now, Felicia. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, dude. But 2 seconds later, they'll come and purr. And then I forgive them immediately. Owns who?
Yeah. So I tell you, the other thing about them that I really like is that they sleep a lot. And I'm not a lazy person. I do suffer. I don't know that I suffer from it, but I do know that one of my shortcomings is I'm a workaholic in too many ways, even for my age. I mean, I'm 64 years old. I should be wrapping this up here pretty soon. And I'm still working just as hard as I've ever worked. And I love my work and I'm good at it and all of that stuff. But cats take a lot of time off. And I would like to be able to take more time off.
I'm saying these male lions, these lay around the safari. They just
Until they're hungry and then they eat or they mate.
5 or 8 lionesses that, from what I understand, do most of the hunting, I think, don't they?
Do they? I didn't know that.
Maybe I think the big bad boy. Maybe I got that wrong. Okay, so he maybe has to get up and get dinner a little bit. That's fine. But literally the laying around and playing with the cubs and having, just daytime sex with all of these cubs. I don't know. I think that's not a bad life. I think it's kind of cool.
I can dig it.
There's away from him, right? William, I can't thank you enough for coming on Down with Dedee. Oh my God, thank you so much.
Well, Dedee, thank you for having me. And I'm really serious about what I said. You asked questions today and we probed issues that I haven't ever been asked about or never really been probed in a way between two people like this. And I would encourage you and your listeners and your viewers to continue to probe and ask and do it as a community that you are. I really so much thank you for including me today, and more fundamentally, perhaps, thank you for bringing your profound story to our constituents at Hazelden Betty Ford when you came and spoke. You really resonated with people across that continuum of the journey, and I will never forget it. I will always be grateful. Thank you, Dedee.
Thank you, William. I will never forget it either. Thank you.
God bless.
Have a beautiful day.
For more information on today's guest, check out the show notes below or visit our website at www.downwithdedee.com.